Moritz Arendt, our head of product of Open Social, will be bringing it back down to earth and talking about our current plans for the community experience platform. Moritz, the floor is yours.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks Taco, thanks for the introduction. Everyone who works in product, I feel that like taking it down to earth, that feels like a job description for me. So I'll try to do that. It's still something that's very interesting, I hope, and that we are going to go through today. So it's going towards a community experience platform. And as Taco already mentioned, like we think civic engagement is really critical to build a sustainable society, as it builds power that influences decisions, that shape society and impacts the planet. And communities are really in the center of creating that power, right? The communities are the core of creation of this power and of the civic engagement, especially in a decentralized, especially in a digital and global world. So we want to contribute to that, and we want to create an open web that empowers mission-driven organizations to drive trusted connections and collaborations to create a better world. We want to be part of that transformation, and we really believe in community-led growth. We really believe in community-led civic engagement. And I think we all, as community professionals in one way or another, believe in that, but also know that there are certain problems. Taco already mentioned this, that there are, that it's from the same CMX Community Industry Report 2023, and there are a lot of like different of those reports, but the problems there stay a little bit the same. It's engaging members, it's hard to quantify the value of the community, manual efforts, tech is obviously a big thing. Here it's at 16%, don't have the right tools, not able to access and use the data that the community managers need. And I think those are all super recognizable problems, right? Well, we are trying to combat some of those. And we are working based on those strategic tracks for us. So our product, we define for our product a vision for each of the stakeholder groups that we see. So we defined 5 stakeholder groups: the end user, the community managers, decision makers, third parties, and us ourselves. And I also love at the summit today that all of those stakeholder groups are here. We have people from third parties that use open social, open source, or as agencies. We have clients, we have community managers, we have people who work in the management of NGOs, and we have our developers and community managers here. And we've defined goals for each of those stakeholder groups that we really put central in our decision-making process and where we want to work towards too. And the last year, we have been working quite a lot to come closer to those goals. So for the users, we really want to have a delightful experience. And we improved on the native app, we improved on performance, on gamification, on things that help the user to grow, that help the user to stick, that make the product nicer to use. And we worked for community managers on organization profiles, also the gamification, files and folders and tasks. So structural things that help community managers build a community, segment it, and allow people to use the tools they need to get work done. And for the decision makers, there's obviously a little bit of a different approach, but we added like payments, we worked on the API readiness and on a secure and future-proof product. Bram and the tech team has been working hard to get to the newest open social versions. We are working on 10.0 updates. We're working a lot on processes, quality improvements. Release cycles have been down to 2 bi-weekly releases. So I think there we have been made great steps to make open social really the best it can be and the innovative it can be. For third parties here again, also continuous delivery, product stability. I think a little bit it overlaps with what we wanted for us, because we are also a client of open social, so to speak. So we've worked on API readiness and documentation here, and on improving those documentation as open social is in its core, still an open source product. Well, that's great, and those are great steps and really important steps for us. We feel there's something lacking a little bit. So this is a little bit the outlook on a very high level, there are obviously a lot of different features that we work with partners of ours, that the team works on improvements, and that also the open source community works on. But for us, in regards to those strategic tracks, this is really important for us. So we're working again still on measuring performance, on multilingual language components. We have a big chunk of API work planned for this year, where we're gonna transform some core aspects of the graph of the product into GraphQL API, and then after that, in around Q4, we're gonna shift to more user-focused things, which is notification improvements, emails, insights, and user tracking, which are all three like very important components in driving engagement and making sure that we reach the people on the right moment. But still, I feel those are also great steps, but there's an underlying problem within community softwares, and that is it's sometimes an afterthought, and sometimes it's very distributed. Again, I think a lot of people here can relate to that the community software is one of the tools that you use, and maybe it's here is 30% of the communities are using 5+ tools in their tech stack, right? And communities don't live in isolation. Communities are obviously like connected within, but they also live in an ecosystem, and digital communities live in the tech stack that is already existing with organizations, and we have to be really aware of that. And I think another statistic I really found very interesting is that 42% of the community pros say their organizations has a CRM, but it's not connected to it. So there is a lot of data in those organizations, and I think the digital transformation is in a lot of also NGOs or governmental organizations quite far, but the connectiveness between us is oftentimes lacking. So for us, the goal, that's why we want to work on a CXP. So a CXP is a collection of products that all work together to help organizations deliver an exceptional community experience to their members. And the core of that is still the community management system, but we really want to expand our scope and add more components to that. So the community management system is still the core product of Open Social, and we're going to work on that. You've heard Taco on goals that we have for that to connect it. You've seen the roadmap. That's the core aspect of it. But a community experience platform goes a step further and tries to connect the dots between other technological systems, tries to gather more information about users, and delivers the right content to the right user at the right device and the right time. That being said, we are, as in the core, still an open source product, and we want to facilitate this. So we are adopting open standards for that. I already mentioned we're using GraphQL API, we're using React for our front-end parts, and we are also using, obviously, OAuth and other components. So adopting open standards and picking best-in-class tools is very important. So it's obviously, for me as a product manager, it's very important to weigh off decisions on where do we need to integrate things, where do we need to complete different tools that do things better than we could do, and where does a product end and where does a product start, right? Especially in the complex tech environments and tech stacks that we deal with. So what does it contain? Like, I want to go here a little bit deeper into that, and that is really, like what we have done and what we still think needs to be built in the future here. For us, like the core part is the web content management system, right? So I think a lot of the communities are first and foremost also information delivery mechanisms. So they have a lot of static content, but also they have events and topics and so forth. So the content aspect of it is still like quite core and quite central within the product. And I think that is something that Drupal does excellent, and it's something that we do well and that we can deliver in a flexible way. The identity management system, as I mentioned here, open standards. We obviously already support OAuth and SAML connections. Based on that, also open IDs. So the authentication process is very important, that people can access as seamlessly as possible between those different tech stacks, right? Like you don't want to log in 5 times on your workday. You don't want to go from tool A to B and like search again for your password, but you want to have ideally a connected environment where you move seamlessly in between. Connected to that is the CRM integrations, and again, like 42% don't have like a connected CRM, right? That's crazy. If you think about all the data that you have, that's the goal of a CRM, to have one single source of truth. So every community from a certain scale should have that, and we do offer integrations with Salesforce, with Microsoft Dynamics, with other CRM possibilities. Also, civic CRM, for example, as an open source alternative, which is still, again, very important for us to offer open source alternative and have like not this one-stop shop approach for us, but best of class. Digital asset management is something that can be obviously very big. We have been working this year with sponsorship, for example, from the European Commission on quite some things there. So on media libraries, on files and folders. We know, again, as open social is quite used as a working tool oftentimes, not only as a social platform, that structuring data, structuring information, and giving people a place to work together and find the right things at the right time is very important, and that oftentimes those platforms have a lot of data to go through. So files and folders is, I think, a great first step into the digital asset management. But again, if you look at, for example, what Acquia offers, there are huge tools also that do that, and we need to investigate how our next steps in this way going to be. There could be also possibilities. So we explored, for example, possibilities of integration with tools like Drive or Nextcloud or things like that, right? Again, always an open source alternative, as we can take files and folders only so far until it becomes a completely new product. And we do not want to cross that boundary. We're not needed. In its core, again, we are community software where we do want to have that vision of connecting the dots and connecting the data. Synchronous communication tools, obviously very important. We offer a chat, we offer asynchronous communication tools, which I think is equally important, especially in a globalized network, in a globalized professional network where not everybody's in the same time zone, where sometimes how you say things is more important than when you say them or how quick you can exchange communication. So we offer discussions, we offer chats, we offer messaging, posts and streams could also fall under that communication part, right? In the end, like the exchange of opinion and the connection makes what makes a community and not only a resource library or a repository of information. So I think also there we have done great steps, gamification and rewards. You can contact Stefano today if you're interested about it. He's working a lot with the United Nations about it. We added their rewards and milestones, especially the milestones I think I really love. They're a great way to help people grow. And again, I think I also come back to that in a second, to this growth aspect of users. For me, it's a very important aspect. So what is still missing there? I think, so we put down here 4 things, which is customer data platforms, engagement automation, platform personalization, and predictive analytics. And also here, I will come back to in a second to go a little bit more in depth of it. But first, like half a step away, which is related to gamification and growth of users, right? Because the community experience platform is a mix of like a community management software and a digital experience platform. And there is this experience component in it, which is very important. And an experience for a user is his or her journey throughout the contact points with a product. And for us, this growth and the engagement and the growth that the user does is very important. So we handle this community experience pyramid, which is based on a model that Greenpeace uses a lot, for example, to show how people transition through it. And as you can see here, it has 7 different steps. So people can grow from consumers to followers to endorsers to participants, creators, owners, and leaders. And not everybody will make that journey. And it's also not important that everybody does. And our community wouldn't also work if everybody would be a leader or a co-owner of anything. But getting people to the next step, to any step they are comfortable with, and getting a decent size of people towards this creator ownership and leadership role is very important, right? We've seen the statistics at the beginning, continuously engaging people, manual efforts, and part of that can be solved by making sure that enough of the community base grows into this higher roles and takes over for community manager. It takes over at least part of the leadership. And I think that's also where the milestones and gamification come into play, because the milestones are a set of tasks that the community managers can set and give people handrails to facilitate their growth. So say you want to be a leader or like an event organizer. You can create a milestone that lays out step by step what you expect as a community manager from them to do before they can take this role. So we developed it together also with the United Nations, who has a lot of like internal parts where people can take over moderation roles, where they can take over facilitator roles for a certain community of practices, they call it, so for sub-segments of the community. And the milestones is really targeted to guide people towards those roles. Step by step, let them grow, achieve certain goals, and then we give them the next set of goals. So it's also like really step by step here. And I think this engagement pyramid is really great in helping us understand, helping our product designers understand what is needed when for users, because you obviously don't want to bombard them with like, hey, create an event the first thing you join a community, right? You want to show them like, hey, you can like something and then something happens for you. That expands your horizon, and with that expanding horizon, if we see people can take that opportunities, want to take those opportunities, we can help them to take the next step and then maybe ask them, hey, there's also an event, do you want to join that? And if they do it a few times, you can say, hey, you could also make your own event. Is that something you're interested in? And that experience part, that growth, is really important for the CXP, and we think there are some things needed for that. So now we come back, as promised, to the components that we do want to build within the next years. And that is, for example, the customer data platform. So again, very big. I think everybody who works in a complex tech environment, for us, the most important part here is go over the CRM and gather data over the users. Understand as many contact points that the people have, and that not only includes like their name and their address, right? But if you look into like a marketing funnel on a website, you register their first contact point, right? You try to understand where do they come from, how did they learn about the product. And that initial growth under the hood before they join the community is also something that happens in communities, right? They might have seen it on a Twitter post from a friend, or they got referred to it in a meeting from a local community. So there are already contact points that you want to have before, and there are maybe also contact points outside of the community. Again, most communities handle 5+ different tech tools, and we are not wanting to replace those per se or push them away, but we do want to understand what people doing in those contexts outside of the community space as much as possible, and as much also as they want. Again, as Taco mentioned, we want to leave people in control, fully GDPR compliant. So that is definitely a big challenge, and that is something we need to work on. And again, we're also the integratability with other products, and the GraphQL work is very important. Engagement automation, again, one of the things that we've seen, and again, everybody can relate to, a lot of manual efforts. And I think that is something that we as OpenSocial can still improve, and where we can grow and help a lot of people to improve the capabilities that people have within automation processes. So I think gamification is already a good step into it, because it introduces a rule-based system where you can say, this happens and people get rewarded for it, but that can be taken a step further with automated emails, with reminders, with rules that you can set up. And engagement automation in generally can even go further, that you say, if people don't come back or anything like that, that you can improve your output, that you can improve retention, and that you can reduce work with it. Platform personalization, again, for us, very important. As I mentioned, the digital experience, delivering the right content at the right time on the right device, based on the 2 points before. If you know who the people are, what their background is, how their usual behavior is, if you have like automated processes, if you have rules set, then you can deliver much more personalized content. We obviously do already with personalized streams, with a notification, with following things in the product. But again, that's definitely something we want to grow in and we want to improve. And I think also with recent advancement in AI and open AI possibilities, that there is going to be a lot to gain within the next 2 years in terms of how custom you can create a platform and how specific you can tailor content to users. Predictive analytics. So again, also generally analytics is something we want to work on, as you saw also on the roadmap. There is some components to it, but the predictive part I think is very important because again, as a community manager, it's really hard to find the right times, find the right places, especially if you deal with a very big community with thousands of people on it. There are a lot of like different segments in it. There are different personalities and groups in this community, and finding the right moment to intervene, finding the right moment to not have it automized but have manual community management can be quite hard. So pattern recognition and being able to say, based on the experience, based on your previous data of your community, we might see an issue here, or we see the activity in tag XYZ is dropping. That could be very valuable warning signs for community managers. So those 4 components are things we really think will bring open social forward. Again, obviously, there's a lot of work in that. That's our strategy and ideas we want to work to in the next years. And that is also going to take quite a bit. But circling back to this year's roadmap, with the information just presented, I think there are a lot of information here that you already see will connect back to it. So the system-to-system API endpoints, which means opening up our product with GraphQL API endpoints towards other systems, will really help in the connectability, will help in getting information from other systems, pushing our information to other systems, obviously. So this is really a fundamental core point on improving the CXP, because this data sets and the connectability between different systems is such a core aspect of our CXP vision. And then again, I think the second big block here, as you can see, is the user tracking. And that is also, again, for me, really fundamental, because data is obviously very important for community managers, for the decision makers, for us, and for the people themselves. And giving people more insight, knowing what people do, internalizing this is really important, and it's a really important step for us within the product to improve on that. And it's also going to be part of the whole API approach, as that is fundamental to how you design data structure, to say what are we tracking, how can you access this data, and then visualize this. So I'm going to talk a bit about this more in the upcoming webinars. So if you're interested in how this precisely going to look like, join me on the quarterly the webinars, to plug my own event here a little bit. And also ask Taco about input for, or like discussion points for the new components. The 4 aspects we mentioned, that is not set in stone. They are quite big words. There is a lot of input from the community needed. There's a lot of discussion needed that we want to also have, and where we want to involve people. And we're really looking forward to that. And I think also important here is you've heard 2 big concepts now with Mycelium and the CXP. And that is obviously, like, it's not like an either-or story here, but I think Mycelium will perfectly fit into that because the core aspects are the same, right? They are increasing the reach, increasing the relevancy of the core aspect, which is the community, which is the communication and the exchange between people. So the core values of both of those ideas are similar. The size is a little bit different. I think Mycelium, as Taco mentioned, is more like a 7-year project. Here we're talking about actual steps for the next years. But I think all of this will also help and play into the role, into the Mycelium project. Again, especially the API parts with exchanging data even between open social systems will be very core to that. So I hope for you that gave a little bit insight into our vision, into what we want to do the next month, gave a little bit inspiration also for discussion within your communities and organizations. If you have any questions now, I'm happy to take them. Yes,
we have time for questions. So whoever has can raise their hand.
Thank you.